Fly me to the moon, let me play.
Well, we're not going to fly you to the moon, but we're going to tell you about a unique experience. Well, it's not quite unique, but very rare. You won't see an opportunity like this for another 5 years, is it, Seanie?
2015 will be the next one, so little under 4.
Little under 4 years.
Yeah.
Now, it's a lunar eclipse, but it's a special one. Why is it special?
Well, for this one tonight, if we do get our break in the clouds, Ireland is going to see it rise in totality, which is a very rare event because, when you think of the motion of celestial bodies out there, everything, has a pattern. We would typically, on average, be able to experience 2 lunar eclipses a year, but depending on where it is in the globe, Ireland wouldn't be able to see it. But this time round, for our Eastern European cousins, they will see totality right through the night, rising from sunset. And as our sun sets, the moon is going to rise off of the eastern horizon, and it's going to be in a blood red colour as it rises. So you're seeing it in mid-totality.
But for a very limited window of opportunity.
It is a very limited window of opportunity. Our moonrise is going to be at approximately 9:45 p.m. Okay, anyone who actually has the advantage of living near flat land or a bog or living on a hill where you don't have an obstruction towards that horizon, look towards the east. You'll see the moon creeping up. The sun has gone down just a few minutes before, and it'll be this deep brown, almost blood red colour. You will have to contend with the atmosphere, distorting it a little bit, but what makes it really, really nice is that this is going to be a perfect photographic opportunity. People often think, why does the moon look bigger when it's down low than it does when it's up high? It's not. It's the exact same. But people still have this concept because you're measuring it against trees and foreground objects and stuff like that.
Really?
I am dead serious, yeah.
I've seen massive moons, and I cannot accept that they are the same size as they are when they're directly above.
Here's an experiment for you. You take a €1 coin, and for, you and I are average height and length of arm and so on, you hold that out at arm's length. The moon is that apparent diameter, 1 degree against the sky. So at full moon, you hold it up against the full moon, the €1 coin will perfectly eclipse the moon. So whether it's down on the horizon or up high, it's going to be the same.
I'm going to hold you to that.
It is an optical illusion.
I'm going to try the experiment, and I'm going to take €1 off you if you're wrong.
Yeah, I'll bet you €1.
Okay.
But I tell you another quirk about the moon.
Sure.
When you actually see it rise on the horizon, visually, or technically if you like, it is further away than when it's up overhead. Do you ever know why?
No.
No? If you think of it from your point of view on the sphere of the Earth, right, you have to contend with the distance of the radius of the Earth added to the distance of the moon from the surface of the Earth when it's on the horizon.
Run that by me again. You have to contend with the radius of the Earth
added to the distance from the moon to the surface of the Earth when the moon is on the horizon. Okay, so when the moon is directly overhead, you are already subtracting the radius of the Earth on the distance of the moon from the surface of the Earth. Do you get me?
No. but I'm sure thousands of people do. I'm just having a slow day.
I'm just winding you up to... No, it's a phenomenon, but it's not like, the moon is technically farther away. It's just one of those quirks of, optical illusion kind of thing. So, but I reckon tonight now, if there is going to be clear skies, pay attention to it.
What about the level of light? Because we're less than a week away from the longest day. Will the light in the sky not drown it out a little bit?
No, not really, but... as the moon does come up from the horizon, you know yourself, you've seen it. People have seen the moon coming up from the horizon. It always has a yellowy, cheesy colour. That's because the light is being interfered by a thicker layer of atmosphere when you're looking at it across the ground towards the horizon. As opposed to overhead, you got this, think of like a tunnel. When you're looking at it directly overhead, you've got less air because air rises. So the visual aspect of it is that the light doesn't matter. The moon is reflecting all of the light when it's at full phase. When it is in totality of a lunar eclipse, it's getting bugger all sunlight. Only a little bit that's diffracted around the fringes of the Earth's atmosphere penetrates into the shadow and scatters, and that's why we get the moon with this blood red effect. If the Earth had no atmosphere, then chances are you would not see the moon at all, because it would be bathed in darkness.
Oh.
Yeah, so at night, if there was a lunar eclipse and Earth had no atmosphere, you would not see the moon.
So if you were on some of these other planets with a very thin atmosphere and they had satellite orbiting, you wouldn't see it?
Chances are you wouldn't. In actual fact, while lunar eclipses are very, very common among many other planets in the solar system, just even digressing a little bit, there is only one other planet in the solar system that exhibits something like a solar eclipse. and that is Jupiter. We have this thing where the moon is 400 times smaller than the sun. And the Earth-moon distance is 400 times smaller than the Earth-sun distance. So this correlation makes a perfect pattern that just when the right alignment happens for a total solar eclipse, the moon perfectly obstructs the sun.
So in celestial terms, that's quite rare.
That is extremely rare. On Jupiter, it has one satellite. Of the 63 satellites Jupiter actually has, only one called Amalthea. It's a very, very small, almost regularly shaped, it's probably a captured asteroid, can actually exhibit the same kind of effect from the Jovian surface.
Presumably, though, only on a very tiny area of the planet the size of Jupiter.
Well, don't forget, Jupiter is about 4 times further away than Earth is from the Sun.
Well, of course, yeah, that's
so
a
at that
factor
distance,
well.
the sun is really just a very, very bright, lukewarm object in the sky. From our point of view, it's just a big, bright, hot, because of our proximity to it. So Jupiter has that different kind of effect with Amalthea.
I was reading in the Sunday Times at the weekend, they found gold on the sun, or at least some spectral analysis or some sort of tests anyway revealed that gold is in the sun. So I reckon the Irish should go up there, salvage some of that, come back and cure our bailout problems.
You think that'll work?
No. Was it Brendan Grace made the joke that the Irish are going up at night? That's how we're going to get to the sun.
To protect ourselves from the heat.
Yeah. Okay, so the times for tonight. Okay,
well, from Ireland's perspective, the sun or the moon will rise at approximately 9:45. By 11:05, it has come out of the total shadow called the umbra and is entering the penumbra. That's the partial phase. And slowly, as it's rising in the sky, it's also coming out of the shadow more and more. And by 11 p.m, it'll be back to normal. Business as usual, full moon, bright night, and we won't see this again for another 4 years.
Did you check the forecast?
Forecast says scattered showers, cloudy, but knowing Ireland, this will change.
I know.
Murphy's Law.
But every time we have you in here discussing some rare event, invariably the weather lets us down.
Isn't it typical?
I take it, if it is clear, naked eye will suffice, or if you want to get a telescope, will you get an extra special view?
Yeah, I think if you have a telescope and you want to point it at the moon, have a look at the way different shadows are cast during totality or partial totality among the mountains and the craters and things like that. It is definitely a different view of the moon. People don't really pay attention to the moon because it's always there. It's only when these rare events come out that the public will say, wow, look at that. Kids become enthralled with it, It's a great thing for scouts clubs or schools or even astronomy clubs like ourselves, to actually take advantage of it and say, look, this is actually a beautiful object if you actually paid attention to it. And you don't have to wait till a lunar eclipse either. Partial eclipses, which happen throughout the year, and even during any of the phases, when you have the moon at half moon or quarter moon, a telescope or binoculars scanning along the terminator, the difference between night and day, and you'll see so much detail you never thought, until you paid attention, was actually there.
I did an interesting chat with a guy the other day who's a big believer in conspiracy theories, and he argues that man never went to the moon and that the whole Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin thing was staged and that they were on some studio set out in Arizona or somewhere.
Yeah, that's been going around for a while.
But apparently, if you've the right magnification on a telescope and you look towards where the landing craft went down, you can still see the remains of what's there.
That's true, but you or I would not be able to see that. Now, some of the Earth's most powerful telescopes have, the likes of, you're talking an 8 or 10 metre reflector.
Okay, so
we'll be able to discern the tracks on the ground because they've been left undisturbed entirely since 1969 to 1972. They're going to be there for thousands of more years because there's no wind. They're undisturbed. But even high-resolution satellite spectrographs from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter has photographed each site over its 2-year mission.
So can you see anything with a domestic telescope?
Not from the landing sites, no.
Oh. So they could still be making it up then.
You're kind of siding with your conspirator as well, aren't you?
There's always a sceptic in me, all right. Seanie, always great to have you in studio. The website for the Midlands Astronomy Club is?
midlandsastronomy.com.
Thank you indeed. Seanie Morris. And of course you can catch Seanie in his other guises as a radio presenter on Midlands 103, Monday to Wednesday for Last Orders.